What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aiden, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be talking about the 4 key teams to look out for in restricted free agency in relation to Coby White. Now, at the end of the day, this is another article that I'm going to be reacting to. Again, Bulls' free time essentially is just completely wide open. We don't really have too much else to talk about except for the off-season and end of the season stuff. So until obviously big news comes around for the Chicago Bulls, this is kind of what we're going to be doing on this channel for the foreseeable future, reacting to articles, giving my opinion on these articles and stuff of that nature. This article comes from Fansided, which again it does write a lot of articles about the NBA and stuff of that nature, and they wrote one about Coby White, 4 key teams that we got to look out for in restricted free agency. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and their, I guess, willingness to keep Coby White, as well as do you see any of these teams being a potential threat to steal away Coby White in the future. So, without further ado, let's get started. Of course, these teams and these outcomes may never materialize. Of course, I fully expect the Bulls to be keeping Coby White for the foreseeable future. But for whatever reason that we don't, these are the teams that could potentially be worrying the Bulls. And maybe these are also teams, if you think about it in a positive light, that we could be looking to do deals with as well. So it's not going to be completely one-sided and Coby White can walk for nothing. If the Bulls don't want to keep Coby White, we could potentially do deals with these teams. And if the Bulls do want to keep Coby White, then these are the teams we're going to be competing against in restricted free agency. So, the first team was the Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, Charlotte had one of the worst records in the NBA this season. This article suggested they have $13 million of usable cap space available, as well as the fact that a couple of key pieces, I suspect, will obviously leave the Charlotte Hornets in this offseason via trade, or maybe they have expiring deals coming up, but I don't see a lot of people sticking around in Charlotte for the foreseeable future. Fun fact, Coby White was born in North Carolina, so Charlotte, again, that's an interesting conversation there for obvious reasons. He was kind of born and raised in North Carolina, so yeah, that's another situation where the Bulls could potentially be worried about that situation. But again, to take a deeper dive into this, Charlotte is a team that does have good guards. But so, again, the Bulls have a lot of guards, essentially. I think, obviously, Charlotte Hornets have LaMelo Ball. Doubt he's going to be leaving anytime soon. Again, he's going to be a guy that's probably going to be there long term, whether he likes it or not, essentially. And we'll see what happens in that regard. But they also have Terry Rozier on that team, a good, capable backup player, or he can potentially start from time to time. A good player. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all they're going to want is everybody outside of a guard. Coby White can play both guard spots. He can play the shooting guard role, he can play the point guard role, and he's developing into a two-way player. So I'm not surprised whatsoever if Charlotte wants to, I guess, pursue Coby White. They were also very interested in Ayo throughout the season as well. So one of those two players will probably have some sort of link or rumor towards the Charlotte Hornets in the future. So let's see what ends up happening in that regard. But yeah, I see this as a realistic option for Coby White. Again, if he wants to be a starter, I think there is a chance he could start as a shooting guard for the Charlotte Hornets. But even if he doesn't, he'll probably come off the bench like he did for the Bulls. They might be willing to offer him more money than the Bulls. There could be a couple of reasons why this is a really realistic option for Coby White. But I do think Coby White would want to play in Charlotte. So that's a conversation there. I think that's a really interesting way to look at, I guess, Charlotte Hornets restricted free agency process for Coby White. I still expect Coby White to be a Bull, I'll say that. But if there is a team out there that I think is a threat, maybe some teams that are willing to give Coby White a starting role could be a threat for the Bulls. But also, Charlotte, I think, is still a threat for the Bulls just in general. So, let's wait to see what ends up happening. The second team is a Central Division rival. It's the Detroit Pistons. Again, another team linked to Ayo, so let that sink in. Both teams listed here were the 2 teams listed for Ayo Dosunmu as well. So, interesting topics of discussion. And, again, Detroit, there are a couple of reasons why I feel like there could be a threat to go and get Coby White. For one, I don't think they had the strongest backcourt. Cade Cunningham was out all season, but outside of that, was their backcourt all that great this season? Arguably, I would say not. I think their biggest improvement in their team was with the physicality side of things, I would say. Not necessarily defensively, but physically. They have good scoring forwards, but their big men, in my opinion, is where they're probably going to get the bulk of their success in the future. They have very strong, mobile, and young big men. So you give them more time to develop, they could be very good players in the future. But their guard positions, I think, is probably one of their weakest areas, in all honesty. Of course, outside Cade Cunningham. Killian Hayes, someone that is on and off from time to time. He's someone that I think you need to develop him long term. He's not going to get better within 2 seasons. He's going to have to keep on improving. A very good playmaker, but not necessarily a gifted scorer at this point in time. So having someone like Coby White, again, a two-way player that will help Detroit defensively, which I think has been a liability for them. And then a guy that is a three-point shooter, can score the ball, and if you give him more opportunities and more shots, he will average more points than what he does with the Chicago Bulls. He's probably a guy that can average around 17 points per game if you give him the shot and the minutes to do so. And that could be an interesting proposition for Coby White. Going to Detroit, building himself up as a very valuable player to get more money in the long run. And of course, Detroit, with their guard issues and their injuries in the guard position, it's not a terrible idea to pursue Coby White either. I think they'll have the money to do it as well. So interesting stuff there, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll wait and see what ends up happening. But both those teams are not on the same level as the Bulls, but I think both those teams can give more opportunities to Coby White. I hope we're a team that can give more opportunities to Coby White as well. He should be a starter at some point for the Chicago Bulls in my eyes. I wouldn't necessarily put it all down to next season, but long term, if he keeps on developing, I see no reason why he can't be a starting point guard for the Bulls or for any team in the NBA. Let's move over into the next team, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be reacting to this as I kind of read along. The next team is the Brooklyn Nets. And of course, Brooklyn, that's also an interesting team. They've got Spencer Dinwiddie. They've got a couple of guards. They still got Seth Curry, I believe, on that team. But Coby White, in my opinion, would be a nice addition to the Brooklyn Nets as well. You think about Brooklyn, they obviously made some big deals. They traded away Kevin Durant. They traded away Kyrie Irving. Mikal Bridges is turning into one hell of a player for them. They still got a very young core. Coby White fits and pushes right into that conversation. As a starter or as a bench, I think Coby White fits the timeline of that team. And I also think he fits the core of that team. I really, really do. Young players willing to work hard, get everything on the court, and be two-way capable players. Coby White, in my opinion, if any team could really fit into that system, Coby White would be able to fit into that system very nicely. And I can completely understand if Brooklyn comes knocking on the Chicago Bulls' door. Not to mention, that's a team that could potentially compete in the NBA. I wouldn't necessarily put them as a top 6 team like they were this season, next season, because I think a lot of their top 6 was with Kevin Durant and Kyrie. They were having a good season before the meltdowns and the trades and stuff of that nature, but they did well to hold on. They avoided the play-in tournament. They played and won some very big games, so I'm not going to sit here and say they will never ever be in the playoffs game again. What I will say is, I don't necessarily know what level they'll be at next season, essentially. They could be at the highest level possible, young guys getting better, good three-point shooting, looking for young defensive-minded players as well. I really think Coby White could fit into that position. I think he could start for the Brooklyn Nets as well. So that's a team to be... Look, all these teams, fair play, they're all teams to be threatened by, in my opinion. I don't know the current situation behind their financials for the Brooklyn Nets, but I did hear a story saying that they're willing to go into the luxury tax. So I wouldn't necessarily put Coby White's price as a key worry for the Brooklyn Nets if they're willing to go into the luxury tax to compete next season. That could also mean potential stars coming into the Brooklyn Nets team as well. So they're in a very, very interesting predicament. Again, moving into that next team, we've got the Utah Jazz. Utah's a little bit interesting. Personally, I don't see Utah again, I think out of all the teams here, I think Utah's probably the last spot that Coby White would go to for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like they have a young core in terms of their guards and stuff of that nature already, in all honesty. Again, I think that they have Colin Sexton, don't they? They've got young, capable stars, and also they're going to be in a tanking mindset as well. Coby would probably be a bench player, maybe a starter for them, if, of course, you're willing to bench Colin Sexton. But most likely would probably be a bench player. He does fit the timeline as well, like the Brooklyn Nets. He does fit the timeline in the sense that they're still very young key guys. They could improve overall as a team. Again, if they're willing to compete, Coby might be able to fit that timeline. interesting. And look, they'll have the money to do it, I believe, as well. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I can't see Coby White in a Utah Jazz uniform, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I know Larry Markkanen's there at the moment, former Bulls player. He's had a terrific season. And again, I think if he does go to the Utah Jazz, development will be key, because I think they know how to develop key players. They've developed a bunch of superstars, more than the Bulls have recently. They've developed Donovan Mitchell. They've developed Rudy Gobert. Even Jordan Clarkson has been a revolution for the Utah Jazz. He was not really that guy on any other team. But Jordan Clarkson, when he's on the Utah Jazz, 6th Man of the Year candidate every single season. So, yeah, they know what they're doing in terms of guards specifically, but they know what they're doing in terms of development. I just feel like their guard situation, I kind of think is already set in many ways. And I don't know if you're going to bring a guy like Coby White, who's been talking about wanting to start. I don't think that they would be giving him a chance to start, essentially. But for other teams like Detroit, I think he could start at the shooting guard spot for Detroit. And I really believe that with Cade Cunningham next to him. With Charlotte, obviously, he was born in North Carolina. I see that as a big reason why he could potentially want to play there. And I think he could start for the Charlotte Hornets in the shooting guard spot. With Utah, I don't know. I genuinely see their team as a team that is pretty good in the guard areas. Maybe I'm wrong. And again, Utah could be a threat if I'm wrong. So it's pretty much down to your interpretation. But those are the 4 teams that I guess Fansided believes could potentially hurt the Chicago Bulls in terms of getting Coby White away from this Bulls team. Now, looking at those 4 teams, I think the best fit for Coby White would be the Brooklyn Nets. Not going to lie. I think Brooklyn is a team that has a lot of young key pieces, and I think Coby White can start for that team. I think it fits Coby White's agenda. I think it fits Brooklyn Nets' agenda as well. That's a team that I think he would better be suited for. The teams I'm worried about is probably Brooklyn and Charlotte. The teams that I don't think he will go to is Detroit, because I think Detroit, they could... I don't know. I think with Detroit, I'm not sure if Coby White would want to go to Detroit. I think he'd be more enticed by Charlotte or by Brooklyn or even by Utah to that extent, but I don't see him going to Utah as well. So I think I'm worried about Brooklyn and Charlotte essentially. That's my opinion. You can have your own opinion. Maybe you are worried that he'll go to Detroit. Maybe you are worried he'll go to the Utah Jazz. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Those are the 4 teams. They all provide compelling arguments, I would say. And I still believe he'll be a Chicago Bull. I don't know what to say. It's restricted free agency. We have the license to pay him. We have the power to pay him. And he said he wants his future to be here. And he's happy to be in Chicago. And not to mention, I do think if all else fails, we can give him the starting spot for the Chicago Bulls. He can start for this Bulls team next season. Again, it could be a long-term plan to start Coby White. Don't start him next season, but in 2 years' time, he continues to develop and get better. He could start for this Bulls team regardless. I think there has to be obviously conversations there. You have to give Coby White, I guess, reassurances that if you keep playing at this level, you keep developing at this level, you will start for this Bulls team. You got to give him something to work for, in my opinion, and you got to give him a chance and a hope that what he's doing will actually work out for him, and that developing at this level will help him in the long run as well. So I see him being a Bull, but I could be wrong. And of course, there are teams there that are opposing us. So without further ado, that's my video today. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in the next Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care and peace.